Hello and welcome to Protect Ukraine Now YouTube channel. Yesterday, I have released a video where, among other things, I have explained how PDA program works. I have explained it as follows. The PDA program has two components. One is the authorization and the other one is the replenishment. The authorization portion is set by the Congress as a cap of how much of munitions the president is authorized to transfer to a foreign country. In case of Ukraine, the Congress have set a cap of $25.5 billion in authorizations. The replenishment portion is actual dollars to the Department of Defense to compensate for the capabilities they had to give away when they transferred the mentioned articles to a foreign entity. In case of Ukraine, the Congress has allocated $25.93 billion to replenish the lost capabilities. I went further explaining that there is no direct correlation between the authorization and the replenishment processes, and the Department of Defense should be able to transfer to Ukraine everything that is specified under the cap set by the Congress. So they have already received or will receive soon in full $25.93 billion to compensate for the articles they're going to transfer to Ukraine. And now all that needs to happen is they need to transfer to Ukraine the military equipment that is appropriate at this time. I went on with stating that the Department of Defense still has roughly $4.5 billion in authorizations for defense articles that can be transferred to Ukraine. Later that evening, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who proposed an alternative interpretation to how the PDA program works. Her interpretation was also logical and compelling. Her interpretation was that when Department of Defense gives up certain capabilities by transferring defense articles to a foreign entity, they must assure that these capabilities are replaced. And the sum of money related to replacing those capabilities is removed from the remaining replenishment that was appropriated by the government. And if they ran out of the replenishment because they were replacing essential capabilities necessary for the defense of the United States, they ran out of money. So there's no more money left, and the Congress must allocate additional funds. In other words, in her interpretations, we actually ran out of ability to supply Ukraine further with military capabilities, and the $4.5 billion in authorizations is indeed unfunded. There's no money to provide munitions according to that authorization, and we have to wait for the Congress to appropriate more financing for that program. This is a very reasonable and logical explanation and certainly deserves a consideration. And of course, her interpretation and mine mean a world of difference in terms of PDA funds still available for Ukraine. $4.5 billion is about 4 months at best of military assistance to Ukraine. This is very critical at this time when Ukraine is very low on munition. So it is very important to get to the bottom of it and figure out how PDA program actually works, leaving all ambiguities aside. You are looking at Defense Security Cooperation Agency document. This agency is under the Department of Defense, and this particular memorandum was released on June 14, 2023. Skipping to page 4, we can see the update to value of articles. And of course, we are interested in the current interpretation. And over here, this particular section C11.2.5.1, value of articles, has the following. The value of drawdown articles is calculated pursuant to DoD 7000.14-R Volume 4, Chapter 4 for inventory and related property, operating materials and supplies in stockpile materials, and Volume 4 for general equipment. Volume 4, Chapter 5 for general equipment. So this is a reference to how the drawdown articles value is calculated. That's fine. Moving on, MILDEP, which is a military department, replacement cost should not be used to determine the replacement value of drawdown articles. So military departments cannot use the replacement cost to figure out the value of the defense articles they are given away. Next is probably the most important sentence in this document. So here it is. MILDEPs should not use replacement cost as the value of defense articles being provided under drawdown authority. So again, military departments should not use the replacement cost as a value of defense articles being provided under drawdown authority. In other words, if military department is given away to Ukraine an F-16, which is between 30 and 70 million dollars, depending on how it is equipped. And instead, to compensate for the lost capabilities, it must get F-35 because that's what the United States Air Force is using today. And F-35 is probably north of $100 million, so it's more money than F-16. Military department cannot use $100 million, which is the replacement cost, as the value of defense articles being provided, that is F-16, which is somewhere between 30 and 70 million dollars, as replacement, as a value that will be subtracted from drawdown authority. So we cannot subtract $100 million from the remaining funds and give Ukraine an equipment that is only between 30 and 70 million dollars. In other words, we should not be running out of money because replacement cost is higher. It is understandable that replacement cost is more than it used to be back in the day. However, we cannot use this calculation. Of course, I'm going to include this document in the description to this video. This is a very, very important document. I think it states clearly, without any opportunity for misinterpretation, that there's no direct correlation between authorization and replenishment. If anyone is able to find a document, an official document from Department of Defense that claims the other way around, in particular, something that states we must first compensate for the capabilities lost before we're able to draw down and ship to a foreign entity the specific munitions, I would very much appreciate if you get in touch with me and show me this document. Now, again, I'm interested in official Department of Defense or other government entity documents rather than thoughts and interpretations. I also would like to thank the friend of mine that pointed out that there's a different interpretation to how the PDA program works. This is very important that we engage in a conversation, that we question each other's opinions, that we present different points of view. Thanks to her efforts, I now have additional piece of evidence that I'm happy to share with everyone here. And we can now rest assured that $4.5 billion in presidential drawdown authorities are held back for political reasons. This is very important that in the coming months, we pass the new supplemental bill for Ukraine. This is very critical that we figure out other priorities here in the United States and pass appropriate funding. It is also very important for various advocacy groups who call for Ukraine today to understand that $4.5 billion in authorizations are still available. These defense articles under Presidential Drawdown Authority are available to Ukraine regardless of what happens inside the United States politics. It is essential that every time we call our congresspeople, every time we speak to our senators, every time we speak to our representatives, that we mention that this authorization is still valid and available, and Ukraine needs those weapons right now. Without these weapons, Ukraine will not be able to survive. We must continue supporting Ukraine militarily. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you very much for advocating for Ukraine.